Right, I think we are live. Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me just make sure my settings are all good. All right, perfect. All right, so today we are on day 5, Indiana versus Richard Allen. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I am Chris with Monsters Under Our Bed. We cover true crime, mystery to the missing. We've been covering this case since day 1. Usually how we do it, since obviously there's no cameras in the courtroom, there's no audio, we have to go with the reporters and their notes and the journalists that are there. And so usually we have to what we do is we recap the day before and then go into day 5, because obviously right now it's still going on. So, there's going to be updates throughout the day. So what we do is we kind of recap the day before, because usually there's more notes that I go through and find. And then I also I'm a visual person, so I like to have visuals for my viewers. And obviously, yesterday they had shown the jurors and everybody in the courtroom the bridge guy video, which is something I've always wanted to see. It's allegedly a 43-second video. And so we got to hear, people's versions of what they saw and heard from the video. So I went and looked at everybody's what they had said, because the acoustics in the courtroom are not that good. And so some people heard certain words that were in the video. It was only looped twice. It's a short video, so some people heard some phrases, some heard others, some didn't hear much at all. And then so I went through and looked at what people had said about the video, and so I recreated it. Obviously, it's not a one-to-one, but just to kind of give an idea of what it allegedly kind of shows and what was said by the girls. So I did make that to kind of give you guys an idea of what it may be like. So before we get started, real quick though, we always like to give back by featuring missing people. So we're going to do this real quick, and then we'll get right into today. So today's missing person is Adrian Sanchez. He went missing October 11th. So he's been missing for 12 days now. This is in Apache Junction in Arizona. He was just 14, 130 pounds, 5'8", brown hair, brown eyes. Says he left home during the early hours on Friday, has not returned home or called. He may have went to California. His family is concerned for his safety. So it sounds like a possible runaway, which, is terrible, but maybe we'll hopefully have a better outcome. If you have any information, you can call 520-866-5111. Once again, Adrian Sanchez missing out of Arizona, but the family thinks he may have gone to California. All right. Hey, Ruckus, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Honored to have you in here. Real quick, I always play just a 2-minute recap of the story of Abby and Libby, just in case anybody's not familiar with this case. And then we'll get into day 4, and then obviously into today, which just before I went live, I heard that the pathologist was on the stand. He's obviously talking about the wounds that the girls received. And one of the huge things is he believes that possibly a box cutter was used, which we heard that one of the confessions from Richard Allen is that he used a box cutter. And I told you guys that I worked in retail for nearly 8 years as a dairy manager. And Richard Allen works at CVS, and he's not a pharmacist, even though they keep saying it in on these big news channels. He was not a pharmacy tech. He was just a retail manager. And probably one of the tools that he probably uses a lot if he's stocking the shelves is a box cutter. So, and when I worked at Albertsons, because I worked there for many years, I would take box cutters home all the time because they always had a box of box cutters, back in the back room. And since that was like the main tool that I used, occasionally I'd take one home. And when you worked at the same place for 7 or 8 years, you start to collect them. Got them in my car, got them at home, and so again, that's pretty huge in my opinion. Hearing that, because I don't think anyone would ever guess that a box cutter was used. Because we originally thought that Libby herself was nearly, and I hate to say this, but it was rumored that she was nearly decapitated. So, but now that we know more, that is not the case, that her trachea was still intact. She just received, sadly, just some fatal cuts to her arteries. So, anyway, before I get any further, let me recap their story. For anybody that may be new to this case, this is just a quick 2-minute recap. And then we'll get into day 4, which is yesterday. Finish up with what we didn't get to get into yesterday, and then we'll catch up with what's going on today. Teenage girls Abby Williams and Liberty German had made last-minute plans to go to the Monon High Bridge, which was supposed to be a teenage hangout with a historic trail and a really high old abandoned bridge. The two girls, who were best friends, just had a sleepover the night before and were excited when Libby's sister, Kelsey German, said she would drop them off as long as the two girls found a ride home, which they did. Although it was February, the temperature was nice for that day, and even though it was a Monday, they had school off that day. The two girls, Abby and Libby, would be dropped off just before 2 p.m., where they planned on only staying for a couple of hours. The two teens, Abby and Libby, would begin walking the 501 trail to the Monon High Bridge. As the two would approach the bridge, Libby, who had her iPhone, would take 2 pictures, one as they passed the first platform, and another which shows Abby looking down as she is crossing the scary, tall, gap-filled railroad tie. The girls didn't know it yet, but they were not alone. As a few hours would go by, the father of Libby, Derek German, would show up, but the two girls were not at the meetup spot. Thinking that the two teens just lost track of time, he would end up calling Libby's phone. The phone was ringing, but no one was answering. He would begin searching for the two teens, but when running into other people, no one had seen them. Eventually, the authorities would be called out, and this would lead to a search party looking for the two girls. But sadly, there was no sign of them on that first night of the 13th. With the search being called off late that night for safety reasons, it would be resumed early that next day. They brought in helicopters, divers, and many other resources to scour the area. But just around noon that day, they would soon discover a grisly scene. Authorities would discover the two girls across the river, and both had sadly been murdered.
Investigators solemnly identified the two bodies found in Carroll County as 13-year-olds Libby German and Abby Williams.
We would soon get multiple press conferences, including one of the most memorable statements by Superintendent Doug Carter. Okay. So, just a 2-minute recap on the story, and now we'll get into day 4. Let's see here. I should have wrote down the time stamp on this one here. let's see. That is I think that's the end of day 3 with Brian. Okay. I think that is. Just check here. I should have wrote the timestamp. I got all the
Valley
all of
and
them
terrain.
in here.
The night of.
Okay, there's Jean
The search
Cola.
carrier found with drive was the tanks responded. No.
Okay, here we go. This is day 4.
Datsman spent his last 20 years at water. Monday's testimony, detectives described a very bloody area around them. Officers explained they found sticks on and around
thanks,
the bodies.
Charlotte.
But one
I
officer,
wrote the timestamp
Dwayne
on this.
Datsman, testified that 3 officers decided those sticks had no evidentiary value.
Okay, so that's day 3. All right, let me catch up. One of the things. Okay, here we go.
Sticks.
This is
Officers. The crime scene was referred to as Ground Zero. The jury was shown photos of items recovered in a creek, including blue jeans, a tie-dye shirt, a hooded sweatshirt, and a Nike athletic shoe. During Monday's testimony, detectives described a very bloody area around them. Officers explained they found sticks on and around the bodies, but one officer, Dwayne Datsman, testified that 3 officers decided those sticks had no evidentiary value and set them aside. Then Datsman explained that he was told to go back and get the sticks. Datsman took crime scene photos with him to identify the correct sticks. The defense has maintained, but is not allowed to bring up, that the sticks indicate the deaths were part of a ritualistic sacrifice. The defense also pushed back on how investigators collected a bullet cartridge from the scene. One prosecutor say matches a gun owned by Richard Allen.
all right. Here we go. Day 4. So on day 3, just to recap, on Monday, obviously they went through the crime scene, which was, very tough because obviously they went through some very sensitive subjects. Obviously, crime scene photos, talking about what they discovered around the crime scene, and of course the sticks on the bodies. And one of the things I wanted to kind of help clarify is what items were found where. I know some people have asked this, I think yesterday, because some clothing was found in the Deer Creek, and then, of course, because Libby was nude, and then Abby kind of had a lot of Libby's clothing on. And so I kind of wanted to help clarify what items were where. And so I've got a visual made for you guys here because they went through what they collected from Deer Creek as well as from the crime scene. And so I separated those for you guys, and then I made a visual for you. So yesterday they continued with Brian Ole. I think that's how you pronounce it. I probably butchered it. But we had prosecuting attorney Jim Luttrell handed a brown bag, and obviously they collected items from Deer Creek, and they collected blue jeans, tie-dyed shirt, a gray hooded medium sweatshirt, underwear, 2 socks, a scarf, and a black spaghetti strap large shirt. So this is, from what I understand, is whose clothing was which. And I think I'm about 90% right. I could be wrong on maybe the underwear. I'm not sure. But these are all the items that were found in the creek. So we have Abby's blue jeans. Those were in the creek. Tie-dyed shirt, extra large. That was Libby's. The gray hooded medium sweatshirt, obviously that was Abby's. We see her wearing that. The underwear, I'm I'm going to lean towards Libby, but I don't know. That I should have probably left that one out. And then the socks, I'm not sure. There's a black and purple sock and a pink sock. They could be pairs of socks, so they could just be both the girls. I'm not sure. And then the green headscarf. If anybody knows, you can put it in the chat. But I was looking for pictures to see if anybody was wearing one. I've seen Abby wearing kind of something, but it wasn't green. Then we have a black spaghetti strap large shirt. I'm pretty sure that's Libby's. We've seen her actually wear one just like that, so I'm sure that's probably Libby's. And then the Nike shoe, which was also just one shoe was found because the other shoe was under Abby, the other Nike shoe. So if anybody was wondering, this is the approximate area. And then, of course, we have the crime scene here. So that just kind of gives you an idea of where the items were found and whose clothing it was. Because, there's obviously a lot of confusion because clearly, with Abby wearing a lot of Libby's clothes and then other clothing found in the creek, there's definitely a lot of confusion. And then, of course, there were some leaked photos which showed some of the clothing found in the Deer Creek there, which shows the tie-dyed shirt, the Nike shoe, and I believe maybe underwear and socks there, but nothing graphic, of course. We don't show anything graphic on this channel. Yes, they believe. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Truffles. So I think they believe, at the very least, one of the girls' underwear is missing. Did it go down the creek? We know that they had people in the creek, shoulder to shoulder, searching the creek. And it seems they didn't find whatever else clothing. But yeah, I think at the very least, Abby's underwear. That's why I say I think it was Libby's underwear that was in the creek. May have been missing or taken as a trophy. Just make sure chat. She had that on. Oh, so yeah, we're gonna talk about what Abby was wearing. So we're gonna get into that here in just a second. So here is what was found at the crime scene as far as clothing. So they recovered a black sweatshirt, double XL with Delphi swimming on it and German on the back. I'm pretty sure we can guess who that was. Libby German's. Sadly, of course, it had red stains on it. Blue jeans, extra large, with red stains and dirt on them. Obviously, that was Libby's as well, but that was on Abby. Now, the things that were Abby's that were actually on her, I'm assuming the gray cotton bra was hers. I could be wrong on that one because she actually has two bras. She also has a black bra. So I don't know, maybe she had her original and then Libby's black bra, because it seems like a lot of the black, Libby had black clothing underneath. And then the pink sleeveless shirt, obviously seen here and obviously on the bridge. So to give you an idea of what she had on when she was found. So most of it was Libby's, but she had the red shirt and maybe the cotton bra was hers as well. And then under her body was the other Nike shoe, which was Libby's. And I forgot to mention, I think she had the Converse shoes as well, which she was seen wearing. And then, of course, Libby's phone was under her as well. Yeah, that was, we just mentioned that. That was found. Oh, the gray hooded sweatshirt that was found in the water. It's not seen in the picture here. I don't think anyway, unless that's it and it's just like covered and stuff. I can't tell. But yeah, that was found in the creek. It's possible. Yeah, it's certainly possible. Sensei says Abby had her hair up in the bridge picture, didn't she? I've got it right here. Yeah, she did, huh? She had like a bun or something, a scrunchie or something, possibly. But I don't see any scarf. What was it? A green scarf or something? And then of course she has her Converse shoes, which I believe was, I think was still on her. But yeah. Oh, thanks, Glowthroat. Yeah, like I said, I like to do visuals with my presentations. So that way, it takes a lot of time. So if at the very least, if you could hit that like button, there are many ways to support this channel as well. They're in the description and in the chat. But I do appreciate everybody being here, and I just ask everyone to be respectful. Please don't say anything bad about the family of the victims or anybody. We know emotions are high, obviously, right now. But we're going to try to go over this as respectful as we can. But right now, if you're just tuning in, we're kind of going over day 4 because, again, since there's no video or audio and no transcripts, we have to go over, go off of the journalist. And, of course, not everybody can literally write down every single word that's being said in the courtroom. So, there's going to be certain notes from one journalist and then other notes from another journalist that may have something different. And, so we have to so what I do is at the end of the day, then I kind of look at certain videos and then I kind of put that together and then I put it in a presentation for you guys the next day. Kind of going over the day before, and then we obviously jump into what's going on today as well. So it's a lot of work, but again, it's a case I've been passionate about, and in my opinion, I feel like there's enough evidence that I believe Richard Allen is the main suspect, sole suspect. Some of you may feel differently. But again, we're going to go over everything and try to report it as accurately as we can. But we know there's a lot of mistakes. Each day there's typos or stuff that the journalist misunderstood. I've already seen some happen yesterday. We've seen it every day. So I'm sure that's just because, obviously we don't have transcripts. So taken also at the scene as well. Let me just continue on here. And then I'll talk about what I did for you guys. That we'll show here in just a minute. There we go. So they took shoes, the Converse shoes, a 40 cal Smith & Wesson cartridge. That's the unspent bullet, live round. Keep in mind that not only is it a 40 cal, but it's a Smith & Wesson, because that's the brand, which I believe there was a similar brand that Richard Allen had. I know he had a couple of different brands of bullets, but I think he had Smith & Wesson as well. Then they took a bunch of swabs of, Libby and Abby. We're not going to get too in depth in that. Obviously, for, trying to get any kind of DNA. They took a swab of, the tree. They took swabs of the ground near Libby's feet, near Libby's head, near the tree that had blood on it, which we call it the F tree, even though it's like an upside down L. They took swabs of Libby's fingers, wrist. Then they also recovered her cell phone at the scene, and they also swabbed the cell phone to see if they could get any DNA. Then we're not going to talk too much about this. You can kind of read it up on screen, but obviously they took swabs of certain areas, sensitive areas of the girls, and also did test kits, which we will hear the results of today and day 5. They don't believe there was actually any assault on their bodies. They found a trace fiber on Abby's upper left arm. In the search warrant for Ron Logan, it mentions that they had found hair, 5 unknown fibers. I'm trying to word it correctly. Unknown hairs and fibers, basically. So now we kind of know what those are. Obviously, the hair was an unknown female hair in Abby's hand, and then some fibers that were on Abby's upper left arm, and I think there was some fibers on something else. Then we went over this stuff. Let's see. Okay. So real quick, so this was kind of the end of this crime scene investigator who did, took a lot of evidence or collected it, and DNA swabs and stuff like that. During cross-examination, attorney Brad Rosie asked if any DNA evidence taken from Libby's wrist linked to Richard Allen. He replied no. Obviously, that's, big for the defense. Yet it doesn't link to anybody that they know of. Rosie then asked if Ole was aware of any evidence of swabs taken from the tree linked to Allen. He said no. Obviously another something that obviously is a win for the defense, with no DNA linking to Richard Allen directly. Then Rosie asked about the sticks that were on the girl's body. Did he believe that they were placed there intentionally? Obviously, the defense believes that, kind of an Odinist theory where that these sticks were placed on the girls in a particular way, creating runes. But when you really look at them, from the diagrams that we have seen, there doesn't appear to be really any, runes or anything to me. And I think according to this crime scene investigator, they were there placed on them by an individual to attempt to conceal the bodies. And that's what he testified to. Of course, they weren't completely covered. Libby had, I think, 4 to 5 sticks on her. Most of them kind of smaller branches. Each one of them kind of had a longer, kind of a wider, almost like log on each side of their left side. Other than that, they just had a few branches placed kind of, in my opinion, kind of randomly around. But in my opinion, I think that the person was just trying to cover the bodies. Rosie asked Ole if he was aware a blood spatter expert wasn't hired to look at the tree evidence until this year, which he responded yes. And asked, did they have a blood spatter expert available to them in 2017. He said yes. He couldn't give a time of death. One of the reason why they couldn't give a time of death is because, you have to use a thermometer in a certain area, obviously a sensitive area, and because it was possible that these girls may have been assaulted, they didn't want to ruin any potential evidence by taking a temperature. So they never did that. Yeah, Nikes were Libby's, and then you can see Converse on Abby, when she's standing on the bridge. You can tell the Chucks. One of the things that the defense had talked about as well before they finished up with this, I think Brian, is that the sticks that were on the girls, they didn't really test them because I guess it's hard to transfer DNA to bark or wood. Again, I'm not an expert in that, but that's kind of what he more or less testified to. And so originally they just put the sticks that were on the girls in a pile, but they would come back and get them later. But I don't think any DNA evidence was recovered that would obviously link to somebody. Then obviously the defense kind of harped on the unspent round that they found and why they didn't film it. And obviously that's not a procedure that they do, because I talked about this yesterday. It would be like a logistical nightmare if you were literally having to videotape every single thing that you're recovering. Obviously what they're trying to do is not contaminate these items. So once they recover it, they may take a photo and then they put it in a bag, seal it, and move on, because so they don't contaminate it. And Rosie kept harping, well, could you put it on a table and took a picture of it? And he thought, that wouldn't make sense because, possible contamination. But again, obviously the defense, that bullet could be a big thing that could be big for the prosecution if the bullet has markings on it that match to what they did with the test bullet in Richard Allen's 6 hour. Yes, Marissa, I am reporting yesterday because I just explained it. We have multiple journalists. We don't have a transcript. So what I'm doing is I'm going the day before, because obviously I had to go last night and get everybody's notes, because not everybody can transcript every single word. So I want to make sure I get everybody's statement so I can put them all together. And then we'll get into today.
Afternoon, testimony continues in the Delphi murder.
So I'm going to skip this. So what I did, obviously yesterday they were showing the bridge guy video. So I wanted to kind of reenact it. I went through a bunch of people because obviously, as I said earlier, if you didn't hear it, the courtroom acoustics are not very loud. And so, one journalist may hear one thing, another journalist may hear another. And so I went through and tried to make sure I got what was said in the right order as much as I could. And then listening to what they saw visually as well. Obviously was really hard to kind of recreate, but I still attempted it. Okay, yeah, we'll move on there. Let's see. Then we had Brian Bunner. He was obviously a cell phone computer. Let's see what. Yeah, he specialized in cell phones and computers. Obviously, he's the one that extracted the video from Libby's cell phone. He talked about taking screenshots of images of the phone. He used software to extract info and data and noted photos, text, videos, and activities from the apps on the phone. So I'm going to let that
He
play.
oversees the digital forensic program, which used to be called the Cybercrime Unit. He specializes in cell phones and computers. Prosecuting attorney Nick McClellan questioned Bunner, who said he has examined hundreds, if not thousands, of phones. Bunner is testifying on the cell phone extraction of Libby's cell phone, which was found at the crime scene. Bunner looked at the exterior of the phone and data inside, took screenshots of images on the phone, used software to extract info and data, and noted the photos, texts, videos, and activities from the apps on the phone. Bunner said there were hundreds of pages of data exported off of Libby's cell phone. Bunner said he didn't go through every piece of data. Time was of the essence, so we wanted to get data off the phone and in the hands of investigators as soon as possible, Bunner said. When looking through the camera roll, Bunner said it showed a video that was taken in the last day or two. That was the last activity on the timeline, Bunner said, determining the video was taken February 13, 2017. Then, Bunner explained 5 photos that were found on Libby's cell phone. In 4 of the photos, you can see a man behind Abby. Bunner said he got the phone back on February 21, 2017. I wanted the phone back so I could use every tool available in my tool belt, Bunner said, noting that he used several more softwares to get even more information and data off of the phone.
Yeah.
However, Bunner said this didn't turn up any new information. On a third check of the cell phone on September 5, 2017, Bunner still did not get new data. On a fourth check of the cell phone on October 12, 2017, Bunner said he reached out to the Department of Human Services in Washington, D.C. to do a Method 3 extraction. There was a new report with some additional data and information. Bunner checked Libby's cell phone a 5th time in 2019 with updated software. During cross-examination, defense attorney Jennifer Auger asked Bunner if the photo of Abby on the bridge...
Now, I know it's Auger, but the AI unfortunately just says Auger. But anyway, here in just a minute, I'm going to play a reenactment of the Bridge Guy video. Like I just said earlier, I went through and listened to everybody, what they had heard and seen, and try to put it in order as well as I could. One thing I did want to mention before we play that is, so during the cross-examination, I'm going to play this and then we'll talk about it here.
Was on Libby's cell phone, which Bunner responded, "Not that I recalled." Celebrite has the capability to show longitude and latitude coordinates. Auger asked Bunner to circle the location on the map where the cell phone was found. Bunner said he did not look at GPS data in 2017. Auger then asked Bunner if it was true that every time data is extracted from a phone, some data is lost. We know that now, but didn't know that in 2017, Bunner said, noting there is a possibility some data was lost, such as being overridden or had fallen off over time.
So one of the things that I heard about rumored before the trial started is that, so the Bridge Guy video, right, it has metadata. For anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's basically just data that's ingrained in the footage itself. It gives details. It's basically like a timestamp of the time, and especially with phones now, it'll have GPS coordinates on it. Now, keep in mind, if you have a shorter video, GPS works better when something has a longer time to triangulate. Obviously, we know this area is bad for triangulation in general, just because of the lack of cell towers in this area. So in the GPS, because it's such a short video, that it couldn't really triangulate exactly where it was. So when you look it up, it would actually show that the video being taken was somewhere in a parking lot northwest.
The jury also asked what...
I forget which parking lot. But obviously, we know the video is clearly not taken in a parking lot. We can see that they're on the bridge. But for those that didn't know that, that's something. That's why they're talking about these longitude and latitude coordinates, because they obviously showed a different location than where it was exactly taken.
Info is contained on Knowledge C database, which Bunner responded that Apple tracks a lot of data, such as health data, GPS, frequency location, number of steps walked, and elevation. Bunner said he did not know that database existed until 2018 or 2019. Bunner said he believed the Knowledge C database was produced by the Department of Human Services. Bunner said he was not aware of any deleted photos or videos on the phone or through Snapchat as of February 14, 2017. Bunner also said he did not screenshot the home screen of the phone while it was locked to show the notifications since it was last used.
Okay, so we're going to show the bridge guy recreation. This was one of the journalists writing down kind of what he saw in the crime scene. Obviously, we have some slightly better recreations of that, but that's kind of where Libby was at. Abby was kind of beside her. Obviously, Libby was nude. There was one tree that Libby was next to, but what they call the F tree was over by Abby's side. And yeah. All right, so again, if you can, please, if you haven't already, please hit that like button.
This is a reenactment of what...
And here, as it's saying, here is my reenactment.
The jurors saw in the bridge guy video taken on Libby's phone.
So this is, again, the best that I could do for now. I may probably do something. I may do this again. But this is what kind of they experienced.
This is a reenactment of what the jurors saw in the bridge guy video taken on Libby's phone.
See, this is the path. There's no path down here. We've got to go down here.
He's got a gun. This is freaking me out. Huh?
Prosecuting attorney Nick...
So that's basically, obviously, it's quick. That's what they would have seen. So, and they'd only played it twice. So you can only imagine, for those that are not very familiar with this video. So the video, and it was kind of rumored not too long ago that part of it was upside down. And so, yeah, there was a lot of confusion, of course, with the acoustics in the courtroom. Some people could only hear one or two phrases. A lot of people said they didn't even see Bridge Guy because at some point when she was filming, I guess maybe to conceal what she was doing, she kind of put the phone down and I guess it flipped upside down. And the recording that we all see that's looped is apparently that was upside down. And so obviously they, worked on it. And the next witness they have, which is just a very short testimony from a witness, he's the one that kind of fixed the audio and video the best he could. But Again, that's about as best I can do. Obviously, working with AI and what I heard on how the video, like where it was, how it started and stuff. Again, it's not a one-to-one creation. I haven't seen the video. I have to go off what I've heard, but I'll play it one more time. But this was from what many.
This is a reenactment of what the
Many different people had said. I put it together.
jurors saw in the bridge guy video taken on Libby's phone.
See, this is the path. There's no path down here. We've got to go down here.
He's got a gun. This is freaking me out. Huh?
So that's apparently, and remember, they only played like 30 or 35 seconds. So I think what they probably left out maybe is, so if they played 35 and there's 43, that's 8 seconds. Because we had heard the mother had obviously long before, the arrest of Richard Allen, in the beginning, the family was brought in to see this video and listen to the audio. And then a certain YouTuber actually interviewed the mother, Abby's mother. And she said at the beginning, it sounds like they're talking about girl stuff. So maybe they left that kind of part out. You want me to play it one more time? Sure. And I'll kind of explain what I listened to a bunch of different people on what they had seen and heard. And of course, I listened to the murder sheet because obviously, it's the two of them. So obviously they can work off each other. And because there was a lot of journalists that said they could only hear like certain phrases while other journalists heard others. And so it was kind of a nightmare. And that's why I think they should have looped it. Obviously the defense didn't want it looped a bunch of times, but I think in this case, they should have probably looped it. But obviously they'll be able to watch it when everything's finished and they're deliberating.
Enactment of what the jurors saw in the bridge guy video taken on Libby's phone.
So I'm just going to pause it here. So they said that the video starts out where it's almost going to point down. I think it started pointing down, and then she says it pans up. And I heard the reverse, so I wasn't sure which one was right. But either way, she said that it's almost like it continues with how Libby was looking, where she's still there. But now there's like a guy back here. And so either the video pans down or pans up, and then it flips upside down, which I think she's trying to conceal it because the guy's coming. And then, of course, they're talking about, which way to go, or, there's a path, talking about paths. And then, so here, I'll play it one more time.
See, this is the path. There's no path down here. We've got to go down here.
He's got a gun.
And apparently, the word gun is mentioned. I added he's got a gun because that was rumored to have been said. I could be wrong on he's got a gun, but at the very least, gun is mentioned. Then apparently Abby then starts running the rest of the way to Libby because she's still, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, I'm not sure, anywhere from 5 to 10 feet out still with this bridge guy, obviously hauling butt. And so as the phone is flipping at Libby, Abby is now running, mentions gun, and then we'll have guys, and then right after guys is when there's what they called a metallic sound, which is the gun allegedly being cocked.
This is freaking me out.
And then they heard that Abby said that this is freaking me out as she came to Libby. And then that's when obviously Bridge Guy is shown upside down. He says, guys, and then right after that. And then there's down the hill, and then they say there's one. They believe Abby. One of them says like, "Huh," and then the video ends. So, again, I know it's not obviously I've never seen the video. I had to go off what people described and what they heard. But I thought I would put that together just to kind of give you guys an idea, because obviously that's much different. Only recently was it rumored that the part of the video was upside down, which I thought was interesting. And I think that was probably intentional to hide, lower the camera.
Prosecuting attorney Nick McClelland questioned Chapman.
So then we have Jeremy Chapman. He obviously is the one that I just mentioned earlier. He is the one that kind of put this. I'm not sure if he put this together, but he obviously fixed a lot of stuff with this video, so that way they could release, a screenshot. And obviously he worked on the audio.
Who said he takes media and makes it more clear. Chapman explained this as turning a light on to make media better and brighter, as well as filters to make things sound better by filtering out background noise. The 43-second video found on Libby's cell phone was played for the second time, which showed Libby and Abby, as well as a man in the background. In order to break the video down frame by frame, Chapman said he put the video through a filter to enhance them and tried to get video of the...
Now, I still see people in here. I saw someone earlier say that he's got a limp, and I always have to clarify this. But first, let me get to this. We got Blue Angels are awesome. That's a great name. Thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. That really helps. Like I said, with this trial, I've been spending pretty much all my time trying to put everything together for you guys. And of course, I have to go through the day before testimony and get it all put together, and then of course we'll get into today. So I really appreciate the support. But real quick, the reason why he looks like he's got a limp, I always have to address this because there's people think he's got a limp. The reason why it looks like he's got a limp is because obviously there's only a few frames that he's actually seen in, and what they tried to do is they wanted to show his gait, his walk. And so what they did is, you'll notice he takes a step with his right foot, whatever, and then a step with his left leg. And then as he's going to take another step, they repeat it. And so if you look closely, you'll see when they cut it and they loop it. And so it makes it look like he's got a limp because they're kind of edited so you could just make it look like he's just kind of walking indefinitely. But where they cut it, it almost makes his knee move back a little bit, so it looks like he's got a limp. But that's just because how it was edited.
At the end of the video, Chapman said he was able to pull 3 frames from the video, which ultimately became 3 photos. Chapman's report on the video happened February 16, 2017.
Yeah, no.
Chapman also enhanced the last portion of the video, where the man can be heard saying, "Down the hill," which was played for the jury. During cross-examination, defense attorney Jennifer Auger asked Chapman if he had a specialized skill in linguistics, hearing or listening, which Chapman responded, "No."
Okay, so then we're getting kind of towards the end of yesterday. 3 more witnesses to go, and then we're going to get into today. Because obviously today's still going, and there's going to be a long break before we get, some more news. But I do have the rest of yesterday and the first part of today. But here we have Rayleigh, I think it is, Rayleigh Voorhees. Obviously she's one of the 3 witnesses that were on the trails that day. There was actually 4 of them. She had her sister as well, but they only mentioned 3 in the PCA affidavit. Can't remember if I've got this.
Freedom B.
Okay.
Near Freedom. Voorhees said she took photos on the bridge.
Okay, let me read the first
2017.
part.
Defense attorney.
Okay. So she was 16 years old at the time, went to Delphi High School. Voorhees said she had Snapchat with friends with both Libby and Abby on there. On February 13th, she walked on the Monon High Bridge Trail to take photos. Voorhees said she did this 2 to 3 times each week. So it just shows you, we heard that this is a big teen, kind of teenage hangout. Voorhees said she was with a friend and 2 sisters on the trail. I think that's the other way around. She was with 2 friends and a sister. See, there again, there's obviously some journalist mistakes. Obviously it happens to the best of us, but I think that's supposed to read she was with 2 other friends and a sister. Voorhees said she left to go to the bridge at 11:30 a.m., got there at noon. Again, that's a big thing that they got there at noon, because that really kind of throws out Richard Allen's noon to 1:30 time frame, because they would have literally been walking side by side. Voorhees showed the jury the path she took on the bridge, and I'm going to show it here. From Freedom Bridge to the Monon Bridge, and then obviously she came back. And during that time, they took photos, so there's timestamps of where they're at in certain places, and that's huge because we have, proof of time of where these witnesses are at certain times.
Voorhees said she took photos on the bridge and down near the water. Voorhees said she walked back up the trail to return home on the path past Freedom Bridge and didn't see anyone on the bridge. Voorhees said she passed a man near Freedom
Jamie.
Bridge on her walk home, which she said she had to be home by 2:30 p.m. Voorhees said she waved and said hi to the man she passed, but Voorhees said he did not wave back and did not seem to be a happy person. When Voorhees heard about the missing girls, she thought it could have to do with the man she passed who seemed unhappy. When the prosecution asked Voorhees to give a description of the man she passed, Voorhees said he was overdressed for the weather, had on dark clothes, his face was covered, he was wearing a hat, he was Caucasian, he had a running mask over his mouth and up to his nose, and he had his hands in his pockets.
So obviously this is huge because, again, Allen's original statement, he said he was there at 1:30. The girls would have been at the Freedom Bridge at around 1:30 before they left. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females, which there was 4, but the one was taller, one had brown or black hair. He did not speak with them, and this was at near the Freedom Bridge, and of course that corroborates with what these witnesses with Raleig's statement, and he said he did not speak with them, which lines up with what the girls said. They said hi, but he didn't respond. He said, obviously they all kind of said he had his head down, walking with a purpose. Here is kind of one of the sketches. So this kind of shows you kind of what they could see. So keep in mind, we heard that, from Raleigh, and we'll hear if this is the first time hearing this, she thought he was like in his 20s or 30s. Obviously, they can only see, like this much of a person's face. Like, how are you going to really age? And so I think they're probably kind of, going off the fact that, most of the, usually, it's kind of a teenager hangout. So they probably thought, he was like a younger guy. When the prosecution pulled up the photo of Bridge Guy, Voorhees said, "That was the man I waved at on the trail." So she says, yes, this is the guy I saw. Then she got to her friend's house at 2:20, 5 minutes after she saw Bridge Guy, because they were obviously leaving as Bridge Guy was passing them. Thank you so much, Golden Rose. Sorry, as I'm saying hi to the chat, I meant to pause that. So she said she originally thought he was in his early 20s or 30s, bigger build, larger man, Caucasian, brown eyes, square jaw, wrinkly face, wearing black jeans, black hoodie, boots, and mask. Dirty blonde curly hair was visible outside of the hoodie. The defense asked, "You are 5'7", and the man you saw was taller than you." Voorhees responded, "Yes." She thought around 5'10", and Voorhees said yes. Keep in mind, also what was left out in this particular blog is that Voorhees also said that, I only saw him for, a split second. He was walking really fast, and, I'm not an expert in height, and I've never, estimated anybody's height before. So, so you got to keep that all, in mind. Then we have the next witness that was also with Riley that day, which is Brianna Wilbur, which is pictured here. I'm not going to show her, her real face. Obviously, they've been through enough already. But next to her is Kelsey German, Libby's sister. Obviously, they're good friends. Oops. She was called next. Wilbur said while at the High Bridge on February 13th, she posted a picture of herself standing at the bridge's start on her Snapchat story. When she and her friends were walking back home from the High Bridge, Libby messaged Wilbur, because obviously, the German sisters are friends with Brianna. And there was a Snapchat response to the photo in her story, asking, they were wondering if Brianna was still at the bridge, because, as the girls, the 4 witness juveniles, because they got there at noon and they were kind of leaving at 1:30, and 20 minutes later you would have Libby and Abby arriving. So Libby was asking, "Hey, are you still there?" But they said, "No, we had just left." Snapchat stories can be seen by other people who are friends, so they're just kind of talking about how Snapchat works. We're going to kind of skip through some of this. So basically how Snapchat works is when you take a photo, it's not on your phone. It's through the app. So technically it doesn't save onto your phone. So keep that in mind. Again, I've never used Snapchat, so I'm just going off what's been described to me. Photos sent to a direct message disappear around 10 seconds. Photos taken in Snapchat, whether posted on a story or sent in a direct message, would not automatically save to the phone's camera roll, just as I explained. A user could, however, choose to save a photo they took in a Snapchat to the camera roll. Some of the settings options have changed since 2017, which sounds about right. On the way back to the Freedom Bridge, Brianna testified that she also took a picture with her friends on a bench on the trail and posted on Snapchat. Now, this is another big piece of the timeline because we had Raleigh, who was taking photos of the bridge at 12:43 p.m. So we know where they're at 12:43. Now, after they've spent what I believe to be about at least 17 minutes near the High Bridge, then they're walking back, and now they're kind of at towards the Freedom Bridge part, and they're taking photos, and there's a photo timestamp of 1:26, which is obviously almost less than 10 minutes before Bridge Guy is actually walking past them. She said they continued walking back to the Freedom Bridge after the photo was taken, and then that's when the man passed them in question. So here's just, again, a look at their travels. They went to the bridge, stayed there for about approximately 17 minutes, and then they walked back, and just before the big opening there's a bench that's kind of somewhere just on this trail about here. And they took a picture while on the bench there at 1:26. And then we know that Bridge Guy is going to be arriving at the CPS building almost at the exact same time. So it would have been 1:26. She said it was, let me pause it here so I can get to chat. NS Desk, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. God bless you. I appreciate the support. With gratitude and a great deal of respect, I say thank you for your work, Nancy. And with the flag. I'm not sure what flag that is. If you can let me know in the chat. Shame on me. I'm not the best with flags. But thank you so much, Jess. It means the world to me. Anyway, okay. So again, we've just got two more witnesses, and then we're going to get into today. It was a warmer day, and they were dressed in many layers and a heavy jacket. Talking about the bridge guy. He was walking with a purpose, like he knew where he was going. When Raleigh said hi to him, there was no hesitation. It was weird vibes. So I guess Raleigh's, she's the kind of person, she says hi to everybody. It's Delphi. It's a small town. It's, a population of less than 3,000. Most people know each other. So, they thought it was odd that, she's being polite and this guy says nothing and walks past him. Later that same day, Wilbur was with Libby's sister Kelsey when Kelsey's grandma called saying Libby and Abby were missing. Brianna talked to the police the night of February 13th, described the man she saw on the trail. She said the man had a blue or black jacket and had his head down. When she later saw the photo of Bridge Guy on the news, Brianna said, "That's the person we saw on the trail." Then we had cross by defense attorney Andrew Baldwin. Called Wilbur's description to the police of the man she saw and it not matching the man in the photo of Libby's video. So basically Baldwin said, well, I'm looking at your description. This doesn't match the bridge guy. And he continues to go on to say, you described the man's height as that you were as high as his forearm. He was a tall guy. And she said, yeah. But I think this is another case where this witness also says, again, I was young. I only saw him for a split second as he was walking by. All I know is that bridge guy photo that was released is the person I saw. Did you see a guy around 20 with brown curly hair by chance? Baldwin asked. And she said, I don't recall. Oh, Texas. Oh. State flag. I should have known that. Here's a video of Richard Allen walking with his hands in his pocket. I don't think I've ever seen this video with his wife, Kathy Allen. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in because I found it. And I just want to put that in. I might work or do some stuff. Okay. Then we have two more witnesses. Really, the last one, and then there's Mullen. But the last one, Betsy Blair. This was a big witness that was really curious to hear what she had to say. We always kind of thought that the way it was worded in the PCA affidavit, that she had been there earlier that day, and of course, come to find out, she had been there multiple times that day. She has a routine. She was on the trails February 13th. She testified she would walk the same route 3 times for exercise on a regular basis. After parking at the trail off 300 North, known as the Mears entrance, she'd walk to the start of the Mona High Bridge, turn around, and go back to the connection, and they go partway down the other trail, because there's 2 trails, 501 and the other one. And she just does this loop. She'd turn around, go back, and then do the loop again. On February 13th, Blair said she did 2 loops, then took a break, drove to a public library to use the restroom, then drove back to the trails to do a 3rd loop. Because in her statement, she says, I was returning to the trails that day. So I thought, would likely meant that she had been there earlier. It was the 3rd loop that Blair testified seeing a man on the high bridge, standing on the platform on the right side of the bridge. He kind of looked at me as if he was expecting someone. So that was kind of interesting. I felt like he wasn't looking for me. So I turned around and left. So that's very interesting, her mentioning that. Yeah. But you gotta remember that he had, a hat or a beanie on, and then he had a hood on, and he's kind of hunched down. So maybe they're trying to, because since he's hunched down, maybe they're trying to think, oh well, since he was hunched down, he's probably, if he was actually standing upright, maybe he's this much taller. So, who knows? But again, they're just teenagers, and they only see him for a split second. Okay, so on our way back towards the Freedom Bridge, but before reaching the Mears entrance, Blair testified that she passed 2 girls, which were Abby and Libby. She didn't see anyone else on her walk to the Freedom Bridge and back to the car. And she had a Fitbit with her, so they could actually track, her movements and stuff. So another witness who, has a device.
On February 13th in 2017.
That, can track her stuff. So here's what it looked like, just kind of, from a visual perspective of the timeline. I apologize with the text on here.
It'll go Blair said she did 2 loops, then took a break to drive to the Delphi Public Library to use the restroom, and then drove back to the trails to do the 3rd loop. It was on that 3rd loop that Blair testified seeing a man on the high bridge, standing on a platform on the right side of the bridge. He looked at me like he was expecting someone. I felt like he wasn't looking for me, so I turned around and left, Blair testified. On her way back toward the Freedom Bridge, but before reaching the Mears entrance connection, Blair also testified that she passed 2 girls who she later learned were Abby Williams and Libby German.
Poor girls.
She didn't see anyone else on her walk to the Freedom Bridge and back to her car. Later that day on February 13th, her husband told her that 2 girls were missing from the trails. Blair said she called the sheriff's department and told them she had seen the girls and a man on the bridge. Photos she saw in the news of Abby and Libby matched the girls she had seen on the trail, she testified.
So he was out on platform 1, standing there. And of course, she was 50 feet away, probably maybe even more. So again, it's not like she was standing face to face to make, an accurate detail on his appearance. But, she claimed that she saw what appeared to be a younger guy, 20s, 30s, with curly brown hair, with poofy brown hair. And one of the theories, and this also started with one of my mods, she thought maybe the hair could have been the brown hoodie, because we know he had a tanner brown hoodie underneath the blue jacket. And I know my mod had mentioned maybe the brown hoodie was up, and maybe that looked like the brown curly hair. And then when I started noticing that the unreleased sketches, the 2, they both have the suspect wearing like a beanie or a cap. And so I was thinking, man, that would make sense if he had like a brown beanie on, that from afar that looked like brown curly hair. And this will be interesting to note because a juror asked a particular question. So this is another thing. Again, you have Richard Allen's original statement. So everything lines up with what he said with the juveniles when he ran into them. That timing is exact. Richard Allen then said he went from the Freedom Bridge to the Monon Bridge to watch fish. Later in his statement, he walked out to the first platform on the bridge. I mean, think about that. This is a huge bridge. It's got 6 platforms. Not on the second, not on the third, not on the fourth, fifth, sixth. He's on the first platform. And that's what he tells in his original statement. And here you have Betsy Blair saying there's a guy on the first platform. Later that day, on February 13th, her husband told her that 2 girls were missing from the trails. Blair then called the sheriff's department, told them that she had seen the girls and a man on the bridge. Photos she saw in the news of Abby and Libby matched the girls she had seen on the trail. Gosh, I bet that's so tough on her, knowing that she was literally the last person to see them alive, next to obviously the killer. That's got to be tough, really tough. Before police called her for another statement, she saw a picture of a bridge guy on the news. And guess what? I recognize him, as he was the one I seen on the trail. Her walk on the trails on the 13th was time-stamped with her Fitbit. Data from this fitness tracking device showed her walking from 12 to 1. That would be the first 2 laps. There's a drop in activity that shows the 3rd loop. Blair did not state the time of the increased activity level in court, but the television Wayne, WANE 15, was able to view the exhibit up close. The 2 green lines indicating activity were observed to be around 1:30 and 2, which makes sense. Yeah, there's a little bit more, Bernie's, yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, everything he said lined right up perfectly. In court, Blair confirmed that she would have seen the man on the bridge towards the beginning of her third walking loop, obviously. Now, this is where another typo from a journalist, we've seen it happen every day. So I'm sure somebody's going to see this and go freak out. But she estimated he was about 50 feet away. This reporter must have not heard the 50 and thought he said 15. Or she said 15. So, but it's 50. And the jurors asked some questions. And these are smart jurors, man. Actually, then we have the cross. So let's do the cross. Andrew Baldwin also called into question the description of the man Blair said she saw on the bridge, not aligning with bridge guy in the photo. Baldwin said Blair told the police the man was in his 20s and 30s, 20 or 30s, with brown poofy hair, and called the man boyish looking. Blair said she didn't see any facial hair or a hat, and that her best guess was the man was average height, not short. Then it was back to the prosecution, pointing out Blair was interviewed by police multiple times, and each time she was asked to give more details. Police also asked Blair to do a sketch with the sketch artist. Back when I was making that description, it was for 2 different sketches, she said in court. So this was a huge no-no by Diener, unfortunately. This was apparently you could hear gasp in the courtroom. So obviously the prosecution fought to keep the sketches out of the courtroom because they felt it's irrelevant. These sketches aren't photos. I feel either way, but they were ruled to not be included. But for those that don't know how court works, is if you bring up something, so let's say like in the Johnny Depp versus Heard, Amber, when she was on the stand testifying, she had mentioned that Depp had pushed, I forget her name, one of his ex-girlfriends down the stairs. And because she mentioned that name, now the prosecution could call that witness forward to testify. And of course she did. She testified in defense of Johnny, saying she was never pushed down those stairs. So that was, So here, this is a win for the defense. They want the, I don't know if it'll be both sketches or what. Unfortunately, she mentions 2 different sketches. So this, again, that'll be a win for the defense, in my opinion. But yeah, that was kind of wild. I don't know how you make that mistake. Kate Moss, thank you. Kate Moss. Yeah. I remember Ben Chew, and, he's like, oh my gosh. Referring to Johnny Depp. Despite her descriptions to police, she maintained the photo she saw before talking with law enforcement matches who she saw on the bridge. Bernie says massive win for the defense. Betsy opened the door. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how big the sketches are going to be. But again, I want a fair trial, and I'd like to see the defense put up some kind of defense, because I don't know, some of the stuff I don't agree with what they're doing. I would have gone a different way if it was my client. One last thing, she says, I immediately knew when I saw the photo, that's who I saw on the bridge. Obviously referring to the bridge guy photo. And we've got one more thing, one more small witness at the end of yesterday, and then we're getting into today, which there's going to be some bombshells that we're going over for today. The jury asked her 3 questions. These jurors are smart. I'm so excited. It seems like they've got some really, really smart jurors that are paying attention. They are obviously asking a lot of questions. For those that may not know or haven't heard, after each witness, before they get off the stand, the jury can write questions, send it to the judge, and if the judge deems it appropriate, she'll ask that witness the question for the jurors. And here is what some of the jurors asked, and I thought this was really great. Let me get caught up in chat there. Yeah. Now, I don't know. I think it would just be the 2. I don't know if it'll be all. I mean, we'll see. Have to see. I don't know which one is. Yeah. Another juror. Okay, so another juror asked if she could have mistaken a hat for. So this is amazing. One of the jurors asked if she could have mistaken a hat for brown poofy hair, and she said, "I could have." I think that's amazing. Because that, in my opinion, is likely what probably happened. He had probably taken his hoodie off, had the brown beanie on, or hat. I think it's a beanie. And of course, she's 50 feet away. It's not like they're face-to-face talking. He's out there standing on his platform. And he only turns to look at her for a brief second. And I think, yeah, she mistaken the brown poofy hair for a beanie. And the jurors asked that. And she said, yeah, I could have. So, again, I think that's amazing. Let's see. Yeah, I was like,
At the end of each witness's testimony, they all said that the guy seen in the video is the man they saw that day on the trails and or bridge on February 13th, 2017.
So all of them, keep in mind, no matter what their description they gave, they said once they saw the picture of Bridge Guy, they're like, yeah, that's the guy I saw. So, I mean, as far as what they said, like black or dark colored clothing or this or that, they all agreed. They're like, that is the guy I saw. So you got to keep that in mind. So, sorry, I'm just going to slow the chat down for you guys a little bit here. There we go. And again, if you're just coming in, please hit that like button. It does help this channel out. And if anybody by chance donates through Venmo or PayPal, if you can, please let my mod know, because sometimes I don't get the notifications right away because my service is terrible here. So the last witness for yesterday, and then we're going to get obviously into today, was Steve Mullen. Obviously, we've heard from him earlier. He was one of the earlier witness on, I think, day 2. He was the police chief at the time, and now he works as an investigator for the prosecution. He was brought up on the stand on Tuesday, yesterday. And he testified on Saturday, yeah. Anyway, Tuesday he testified about the surveillance video he viewed at the Hughes or Harv store. That's the address listed, 300 North. On February 14th, Mullen looked at the video from 8 a.m. to 5:30, February 13th. I think this is huge because, we've always kind of wondered, what's the quality of this video? And I think this gives us at least an idea. He was specifically looking for vehicles that had that he had descriptions for. So he had descriptions for Betsy Blair's vehicle, Kelsey German, Sarah Carbaugh, and he said that he could take photos. So obviously he wasn't taking the actual surveillance footage, but he was snapping photos. So that tells me, at the very least, he can make out. You can make out like the make and model of the car for the most part, if he's able to, So I think that's a great sign, because there's going to be a black Ford Focus driving by at 1:27 p.m. From the position of the surveillance camera on the building, a vehicle traveling east would be heading towards the trail entrance. A vehicle heading west would be heading away from the trail. And then it gives a list. Now, obviously, they leave out Richard Allen's car. Speed this up here. But right now, I think they'll probably obviously bring him back again to testify, unless there's somebody else that actually, when they took the actual surveillance, then they may have him testify. But at the time, he was looking at the vehicles, and so he noted that he saw Betsy Blair at 12:02, and then again at 1:15. And then again at 1:46, and then they see Kelsey German at 1:49. So obviously they arrived at the Mears parking lot at 1:50. Betsy Blair then was leaving at 2:18. That's when she saw the Ford Mercury, which is actually made by Comet, she claimed the Ford Comet, but it's actually a Mercury Comet. And then we have Sarah Carbaugh, who is going to be testifying. We're going to be talking about her because she's the next witness. And she was traveling east at 3:56 p.m. She would obviously see a particular man walking down the road, bloody and muddy, wearing a blue jacket and blue jeans. And so we'll go up obviously through her testimony, but this is the Hoosier Harv store. This is 300 North, and the camera was kind of pitched up on the face of this building here. We could almost see where the bracket or brace was at. Obviously, camera's not up there anymore because this particular store moved a year later or sometime after the murders, so the camera's not up there anymore. But that's kind of where the camera would have been facing, and I think that's great, knowing that they can at least identify cars. So then before we get into today, of course, they went to Fort Wayne, where they could see some of the exhibits that are coming up. One of the big ones is Richard Allen writing basically a confession to the Department of Correction, the warden. In it, it says his name, his inmate number, the date, which is March 5th, 2023. And it says, "I am ready to officially confess for killing Abby and Libby. I hoped I get an opportunity to tell the families I'm sorry." So, one of many bombshells that are going to be coming for the prosecution. And we're going to hear one today that we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show. Obviously they couldn't take a photo of it. As you can tell, it says recreation. So they basically just wrote out how they saw it. So you can kind of see how he wrote it out for the most part. Okay, so now we're on to today, day 5. I know that was a lot to go over, but again, that's kind of how we have to do it because, again, there's no video or audio, and, there's no transcript, so we have to go off what's being reported by the journalists. And of course, they're not going to be able to report every single word verbatim. And so I have to go and, go through a bunch of different people that were there and then kind of put it together. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So one of the things that happened, not surprising, and I just have to talk about this, and then we're going to get into the first witness. The attorneys for Richard Allen have filed a motion to admit evidence. So they want to get their Odinism thing in. Now, obviously, right now, that was ruled on before the trial started, that they couldn't bring up the Odinist, the third-party suspects. They had a hearing for it. Basically, the judge believes that there's no nexus to these third-party suspects that put them on the bridge there that day. So she ruled it out, but here they are trying to file another motion, I guess. But I had to highlight this. And again, I thought this was weird that they mentioned this, but this might just because of it's a blog. But the defense wants to allow the testimony of Don Perlmutter, who is an expert in Odinism. Now, they heard from Don Perlmutter in July, and I heard some of the transcript. And I'm just going to be honest. And I know, obviously, I believe Richard Allen is guilty. So I may have a little bit of bias on this, but my God, it was atrocious. She admitted she has never seen the crime scene photos, yet she's able to come up with an opinion that a ritualistic killing happened and that there was, Odinist, whatever stuff there at the crime scene. Even though it only had been described to her, she had never actually seen the crime scene photos. So I thought that was so ridiculous. And I'm sorry. It just, for anybody that's heard it, it's terrible. She did not do well on the stand at all. She was torn apart by the prosecution. It sounded ridiculous. I'm sorry. It was atrocious. It was not a good look for the defense. I still don't mind them bringing in this Odinism thing, but this Don Perlmutter, I can't believe they would try to bring her back. Sorry, I just had to throw my 2 cents in there because I would leave her out. Okay, I have to use the restroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play just a short recap video of the news, talking about what happened yesterday, and we're going to get a car boss. So this will just take 2 minutes, but I got to use the restroom. I apologize, guys. But we are going to get into today's. The first witness is Sarah Carbaugh. I guess she was on the stand for quite a bit because there was a lot of back and forth between the prosecution and the defense. And then after that is the not the coroner, but the guy that obviously checked out the bodies at the and did the autopsy or helped with the autopsy. can't think of the name at the second. They mentioned that they believed a box cutter may have been used. And of course, to me, that's huge because of Richard Allen's prior work history and what he was doing, where he was working at the time of the murders. So let me just play this for a minute while I go use the restroom. Just 2 seconds here, guys.
Asked about the people who saw Bridge Guy. We heard today testimony from 3 separate women who say that they are confident that they saw Bridge Guy either on the Monon High Bridge or walking
Medical examiner.
on the
Yeah,
path
sorry.
leading to the bridge in really the hour or so leading up to when investigators think the murders actually
Thank you,
happened.
Benny.
So
Use the bathroom real
I can
quick.
tell you that Riley Voorhees and Breanne Wilbur, 2 of the women who testified, they're women now. They were teenagers back when this happened. They were actually classmates at Delphi High School of the 2 victims. They testified they were out on the path together on the day of the murders, and they say that they saw who was later identified as Bridge Guy. We also heard from Betsy Blair. She's a woman who frequently in 2016 and 2017 said that she went to the trails around the Monon High Bridge and the Freedom Bridge to walk and get exercise, doing 3 loops from one bridge to the other several days a week. And she was on the trails on the day of the murders, and she says that she saw Bridge Guy, and they are confident. I want to show you some of the quotes, some of the things that they directly told the jury today. Riley said, after she saw the image of Bridge Guy released by state police, she said, I can say with confidence, the person in the picture is the person that I saw out on the trail that day, actually closer to the Freedom Bridge, but not a long distance from the Monon High Bridge. Breanne Wilbur said, that is the person we passed on the trail, as she referenced the picture of Bridge Guy that the jury was seeing. And Betsy Blair said, I immediately knew when I saw that photo that was released by state police, that was the man I saw on the bridge. So that seemed to be some very positive identification as far as these 3 witnesses, not necessarily saying that they saw Richard Allen, but saying that they saw Bridge Guy. However, there's a big problem here for the defense because of the next testimony that they gave, and that testimony came during cross-examination by Jennifer Auger, one of the defense attorneys for Richard Allen. And she really pounded away on the reports, the testimony that all 3 of these women gave in the days just after the murders took place, and how they described Bridge Guy at that time. And so I want to show you some of the things that they said, those descriptions that were brought up in court today. They described Bridge Guy back then as, Riley said, a larger man. Another one of them said a tall man, and not short, is what we heard from Betsy Blair. They described him, Bridge Guy, as someone in his 20s or 30s. And Riley...
Okay. All right, let's get into today. Get my video back on D5. There you are.
Teenage girls, Abby Williams and Liberty German, have made
VLC player. It starts out like that. Okay, day 5. A lot, some big stuff going for today. So let's get into it. Right, let me. Is this Blair? Okay, that's Betsy Blair. Okay, here we are. Okay, day 5, which is still going on, and we're gonna go over the first witness, which is Sarah Carbaugh. Which is, she used the phrase muddy and bloody. And then the defense had said that no, she didn't use the word bloody. And now we kind of know why. The defense is kind of arguing that, so we'll go over that. Obviously, I just talked about they filed a motion. If we get time, we can look at that. I've got that motion as well. Let's see here. Okay. So here we go. Lifelong Delphi resident Sarah Carbaugh takes the stand this morning. She described herself as local as you can get. Carbaugh said she visited the trail almost every day with her dogs. Carbaugh said she uses the Mears entrance to the trail. Seems like a lot of people, especially the locals, use that Mears entrance. It's not a big parking spot. Just a few cars can fit in there. But it puts you, instead of having to go from the Freedom Bridge, it puts you right where there's the split with the two trails there. So I can see why that's kind of a popular place for the people that know this park well to use that certain entrance. Carbaugh says you can park up to 4 cars across the entrance. She said she crossed the Monon High Bridge at least 3 times as a child. So this, again, I think we mentioned this in some lives prior, that this is something that, is kind of like a bucket list, something that kids dare each other. It's a teen place that teenagers go. Carbaugh said she heard the Amber Alert for Abby and Libby when it was issued and drove by the Mears entrance three times. She said around 4 p.m. that day, Carbaugh saw a group of people near the entrance, the Mears entrance. So I'm just going to pull this up so we can kind of reference what's going on, because we like to show visuals on here. So again, here is obviously the bridge. And this is kind of where the Mears parking lot is at. And right? I think that's where the Mears parking lot is at. And is it further up? Anyway, it's sorry, there's a big truck coming. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. But anyway, the Mears parking lot is up here, kind of halfway point, and it's pretty popular for them to park there. And anyway, back to her testimony. Where do we leave it off? She said around 4 p.m. that day, she saw a group of people near the entrance. She said that included at least one person who was blonde, wearing a pink sweatshirt, looking stressed out. So obviously we know about that time, the family of the girls were starting to arrive, obviously, because when Derek German, who was originally supposed to pick them up, when they weren't there, they were getting worried. Yeah, loud truck warning. Sorry, usually I will work on, of course, tomorrow I'll have, more of what she did in a video built into a visual. Okay, here we go. She says, I saw a man covered in blood walking on the side of the road as she was passing. It was about 3:56, I believe. Carbaugh said she did not recognize the man, but that he had made eye contact with her. This was before she had learned the girls were missing. Carbaugh labeled where she saw the man on the map as the bridge guy. It'd be interesting to know, because we only kind of suspect an approximate area. She also said she recognized the bridge guy as the man covered in mud and blood walking on the side of the road. Carbaugh describes the man's demeanor as very sketchy. She said the man had mud on his legs and blood further down. Carbaugh said she thought the man fell down a cliff and was injured. Carbaugh said she had the glow of the sun behind her as she drove east. So, obviously, she's basically saying, it was, instead of having the sun in your face and, can't see well, the sun is shining in her favor towards what she's looking at. She continued to say, I was very traumatized by anything murder related, Carbaugh said. Carbaugh told the jury she waited 3 weeks to tell the police what she saw. She said she told herself she had to be brave, so she was freaked out. So it sounds like, she drove past this guy, saw this guy muddy and bloody, then heard that these girls were missing, and then heard that, then of course, obviously, the next day that their bodies were found and that they were murdered. And so she waited 3 weeks because she was traumatized. So obviously, because she probably knew that she had just drove by the killer. So, yeah. And we're going to find out here as we continue on that, yeah, she's clearly wasn't looking forward to being a witness because this obviously was traumatic to her. And, yeah. Gustavo, good to see you, buddy. I'm going to reach out to you after the live show. I hope you're doing well, bub. Carbaugh told the jury... Oh, wait. No, I already went through that. Carbaugh said the murders turned the entire town and everyone in it upside down. I could only assume that would be very terrible because obviously this is a population of less than 3,000. If you look at like crime rate in just Delphi, it's it's little to none. Maybe a robbery or a theft once or twice a year or something like that. I'm not sure. It's something like that. It's very, the crime rate, obviously in a population like this is very little. So you can only imagine something like this is huge. So we don't know. This is obviously just kind of rough estimation of where, but obviously the jury got to see exactly where she had passed him, so it'll be interesting to see. I believe in the PCA it says he was on the north side of the road, if I recall. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it said he was on the north side, walking west as she's heading east. So keep in mind, so she obviously, he would be walking and that would be on the driver's side. So she would be able to get a good look at him. Whereas if he was on the south side of the road, he'd be on the passenger side and probably, you'd have, a bunch of obstructions to be able to see this person and more distance. So, even though I'm sure it was probably for more or less a few seconds that she only got to see this guy, she did get, pretty close to this suspect. This is the road she was on. Obviously, she was driving the opposite way. So, of course, in the PCA, they talked about the muddy and bloody, wearing a blue jacket and blue jeans. Then the Frank's affidavit, of course, they said that she never said that he was bloody and that he was wearing a tan jacket. And now we learn why the defense was saying basically that she didn't say this stuff. Obviously, Sarah would be responsible for this sketch here. This sketch was also a combination of what she saw and the video, from what I understand. Maybe they'll. Well, actually, no, I don't think they'll talk about it because they they don't want the sketches in. So, but then again, if the sketches do get brought in, then maybe they'll explain. But it was rumored, and it might be confirmed, I think. Let me know in chat, but I think they said it was basically a combination of a witness and the video. Then we have the cross-examination. This is where things really start to get a little heated. Baldwin said Carbon never mentioned blood in her first interviews with police. Baldwin said blood does not appear in the transcript of the interview. Carbon said that she thought she said it once in the first interview. Baldwin said she used mud 13 times but never blood. Carbon said there had been at least an hour of her interview she hasn't been able to watch. So I think that is the reason, is possibly part of her interview got lost or erased. I'm not sure. Baldwin said she didn't mention it in the second interview either and provided her with both transcripts. So obviously now he's probably trying to get herself to see if she's going to perjure herself. But if she did say it, and it just wasn't in the transcript because there's part of the interview that isn't there, then I don't know if that's really going to happen. Carbon said she saw nothing in the transcript mentioning blood, but she said she did mention it to the officer. Baldwin said she also didn't mention blood in her third interview either. Baldwin said Carbon didn't mention it until 2019. I think I said mud and blood, Carbon said. Now, I will say, okay, yeah, so it's Baldwin doing this. You said it looked like a hog had been slaughtered, Baldwin said. Baldwin then asked if she stopped to help the bridge guy. I am a woman, Carbon said. I'm not going to stop and help a random man. Baldwin said Carbon described the man as wearing a tan coat in the first interview, then changed it to blue in the second interview. She goes on to say, in my first interview, I did describe the color of the coat wrong, Carbon said. Outside of this testimony, I want nothing to do with this. So it sounds like she's not happy to be there. I definitely feel bad for her. Baldwin said that Carbon asked not to be shown a photo during her first interview, but was shown anyway. He said the officer kept the photo out throughout the interview. Baldwin said that during the interview, Carbon said the bridge guy had curly hair and very feminine eyes. A visibly upset Carbon denied saying the bridge guy had feminine eyes. So it sounds like that was probably pretty heated this morning. She said, I only saw Bridge Guy for less than a minute. Wearing extreme amount of layers for a warm day and just being weird, Carbaugh said. Then it was another redirect back to the prosecution. Stacey Diener began to redirect. Diener asked Carbaugh if the person she saw had a tan sweater. She said yes. Diener asked if Bridge Guy had a hat. Carbaugh said the hat stood out to her and that it looked funky. Carbaugh said she saw the bottom of the man's ears, but her mind was tainted when it comes to the hat. It's kind of a interesting word. Carbaugh said the man was hunched up with his hands in his pocket the entire time. That goes with just about everybody that's witnessed the guy, hands in pocket, hunched down, walking with a purpose. Diner said the last hour to half hour of Carbaugh's second interview in 2017 is missing. Carbaugh agreed and said she discussed the blood in the missing portion of the interview. The prosecution brought up the enhanced photo of Bridge Guy taken on Libby's phone and highlighted areas marked as mud and blood. So that's interesting. I'm wondering, because I saw this before I went live, and I'm like, well, how could he have mud and blood on him, from the photo? Because obviously this is just before they're going to be abducted. So I'm wondering if she's highlighting basically where she saw the mud and blood from the photo, if that makes sense. So not saying that there was mud and blood in that photo, but where it was at when she had passed him at 3:57 or 4 p.m. or whatever. Wonder if the stock ticker app has any activity from 5 years ago. I don't know. Oh, I have coined the phrase token. Take it. Yeah, token. Yeah. Token is my word, and I'm going to put it on a t-shirt. Yeah, I need to make that t-shirt. But anyway, I'm going to make it a word officially. Yeah, sidetrack there. Seeing that. And so then it goes back to the defense. It's back to Baldwin again. Again, she said mud 13 times in the interview. Carbaugh says, "Are we doing this again?" "Yes, we are," Baldwin replied. Baldwin asked how old she was at the time. Carbaugh answered that she was 35 now and was maybe 26 when the murders happened. Baldwin asked her why she thought she saw blood spatter, and Carbaugh said it was because she saw blood spatter. Baldwin asked how obvious was the blood. Carbaugh said the whitewashed jeans made it more obvious. That's a pretty good response. In a confrontational series of questions, Baldwin asked how close Carbaugh was to the man when she passed him, which she responded less than 3 feet. So, according to her, obviously she drove right past him. But then Baldwin said that she had said 20 feet before. And Carbaugh responded that she didn't have a tape measure with her when she passed, which she responded with less than 3 feet. So, and then Baldwin. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Why is that? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought that repeated itself. Baldwin said she had said 20 feet before. Carbar said she didn't have a tape measure with her. Baldwin said that doesn't excuse her from her subpoena. So that is it. Obviously, we've got, Carba. Clearly, I feel bad for her because it seems like she's been through a lot. And probably interviewed multiple times. And obviously, memory changes. And, obviously, may say one thing and then say another and another, since there's multiple interviews, maybe some kind of statements that are not cohesive with the others. And, of course, then the defense is going to poke holes in that. So this is interesting. According to this journalist, she says she was the strongest witness for Bridge Guy so far. She claims she saw Bridge Guy by the cemetery around 4 p.m. in the afternoon as she was driving past. Says he was hunched over, plotting with his hands in his pocket and head down. There was no eye contact. Which I thought the other journalist said that she did. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to go back. So that's where I'll have to go back at the end of the day and compare notes. Says BG was muddy and bloody on his clothes. Says blood was on his lower legs, feet, and ankles. Says rest of him was muddy, as if he had fallen down a hill or a muddy creek. At no point does she say or was she asked if Bridge Guy was Richard Allen in her opinion. She had more difficulty on cross, becoming more combative with the defense attorneys. Defense asked her why she didn't mention blood in her past statements to law enforcement. She said she did, but they did not write it down, and that part of her interview was possibly recorded over, and we know that had happened before. Gil says, didn't have a tape measure with me. Feisty. Yeah, I mean, you can't blame her. That's got to be tough because, you're driving by. Obviously, it's not a fast road. I'm assuming that's like a 35, mile speed limit. So you're not going too fast, but still, you're passing a guy walking. You're only going to see him for you'd probably see him a long ways out. But the part that you really, get to see him well is only going to be for a brief few moments. But yeah, it sounds like he was fairly close to the driver's side. So very interesting. All right, now we're going to get into some bombshell stuff that I saw just before going live, which I'm going to say doesn't bode well for Richard Allen here. Let's get into what's been going on since I started going live. Okay, so now at 11:45 earlier today, Dr. Rowland, a forensic pathologist based out of, I am not even going to say it because I'll butcher the heck out of it, was the state's 20th witness in the trial. Rowland is a semi-retired and served as Vigo County coroner for many years. He performed autopsies on Libby, German, and Abby Williams. Rowland explained to the jury the steps of an autopsy. Oof, that's pretty tough here. Just trigger warning, because we are going to be probably getting into a little bit of heavy stuff here. Not too much, but which begins with being contacted by investigators and learning about the case, then later performing examinations of the body. So it sounds like he gets in contact with, obviously, the crime scene investigators, get an idea of what they had seen and what they had recovered, probably just obviously to get a narrative of the bodies that he's about to do an autopsy of. Excuse me, I got to take a sip here. The first autopsy was performed on Abby. Rowland noted Abby's clothing and any physical injuries and performed a certain kit. He said that Abby had a 1 inch deep, 3-inch long incision wound in her neck. She also had a faint mark under her mouth. Rowland said which could be from duct tape or cloth. Interesting. Abby showed no signs of blunt force trauma or restraint wounds. He said through the kit showed no injury patterns. It does not mean that there wasn't contact. Does that mean it? Oh, that's interesting. So even though there was a ape kit done on Abby, and there was no overt injury patterns, he says it still doesn't mean that there couldn't have been some kind of contact, assault of the body. So very interesting. Now, Libby German. Autopsy was performed on her second. Rowland noted her clothing, physical injuries, and performed a kit. The autopsy report said Libby had anywhere from 3 to 5 incision wounds on the right side of her neck. So she had 3 to 5 on the right side, the largest being around 3 to 5 inches long. Oh, long. Okay. She also showed no signs of trauma or defensive wounds. Rowland estimated the girls died approximately 41 hours before the autopsy. Ooh. Interesting. Now, I think the other way that they could determine kind of time of death is, the first one is doing a thermometer in a certain orifice. But obviously they didn't want to do that because there could have been potential evidence. The other way is the liver, I believe. So that's interesting because that'll conflict with the defense's theory that, that they were killed that morning of. Defense attorney Brad Rosie began to cross-examine and discuss Rowland's deposition from February 2024, which included information about attack and speculation on the girls' reactions after being attacked. He said in February's deposition that he couldn't determine if the killer was left or right-handed, and that a serrated knife may have been used. Rowland then said after his deposition, and here's the big one, and I'm just going to zoom this in. Oh, shoot, and I'm zooming. Highlight that right there. Rowland then said in his deposition that a box cutter may have been used instead of a serrated knife, but did not inform the defense. Kayla Russell from News 8 said Rosie showed upset in the courtroom after Rowland admitted his uncertainty about the weapon used and did not file a new report. Now, I would understand Rosie's being upset if he didn't know about that. But damn, I hate to say that, but damn, because for those that have been following this case, one of the supposed confessions by Richard Allen is that a box cutter was used in the murders. And they actually went to CVS because he said in this confession that he used a box cutter in the murders and that he disposed of the weapon at the garbage in the trash dump at the CVS store. I said that's big. That is big. It's huge. So I have to go over this again because just to kind of understand how this is big. Sorry, let me take a sip here. So one, Richard Allen, even though they keep reporting this in the news, he's not a pharmacy technician. He has a pharmacy tech license. The reason he has pharmacy tech license is because he works as a shift supervisor at CVS. And because I'm assuming he has to maybe change the cash tills at the end of the day or whatever, he has to go into the pharmacy to do that. Because of that, he has to get a pharmacy tech license. Now, those licenses only last 2 years. So he has to renew it every 2 years. And so if you do a background check on Richard Allen, it'll come up, saying, oh, he's got, a pharmacy tech license. And it comes up a bunch of times. So that's why they always keep, these major news outlets repeat that, even though if they just did a little research, Richard Allen helped the family get photographs for the funeral. Well, I can tell you, pharmacists don't work with the photographs. They work with they're in a locked room, and they're in the pharmacy area. They don't help people with their photos. I don't know. Maybe there's a special store that may do that, but that's yeah. So anyway, where I'm getting at is, as a night shift supervisor, as someone else who's worked in retail. Now, I didn't work at CVS, but I worked at Albertsons. But I understand those positions. And usually what they would be doing is either working at the cashier, or when it's not busy, because now they have self-checkouts, they'll be stocking shelves. And one of your biggest tools, or your main tool, is, and I had a box cutter laying around, is a box cutter. And I worked at Albertsons for 8 years, and I was a dairy manager, and obviously my biggest tool was a box cutter. And of course, I would occasionally take the box cutters home, because I'd have them in my pocket, and I'd check it, or, I'd clock out and forget I had it in my pocket. And they always have extras and spares, And so throughout many years, I just had a ton of box cutters, either laying in my car or at my home. And anyway, it would not surprise me that he would have a box cutter probably sitting in his car or on him, just because, again, that'd be a tool that he probably used a lot. So anyway, this is huge because a lot of people always originally we heard that, Libby was nearly decapitated, which obviously now we know is not true. Her trachea was still intact. And so I don't think anyone would have guessed a box cutter would have been used. But again, I digress. We will eventually hear, because we did hear in July, that one of the confessions is Richard Allen saying that he used a box cutter. So again, not good. I'm in awe for Libby of her video action. Yeah, Libby, I mean, both girls were, obviously strong, and both are heroes. They didn't leave each other's side. And, yeah. So, so let's see what else there is. So it's almost 3. That means it's almost 5 p.m. there. Sometime they leave sometime around. Oops, actually that's not where I wanted to go. Anywhere between 5 and 6. I guess it just kind of depends on what witness is on the stand and when they want to, find the right spot to take a break and end for the day. To testify. Was that 232? Oh, interesting. Okay, let me just scan this for a minute. So another person that's testifying is Sergeant Christopher Cecil. So we're going to hear from him. So he knows the girl's movements based on analysis of the contents of Libby's iPhone. At 1:38 on February 13th, Libby called her father named Daddy-O in her contacts list. Derek German testified last week. At 1:41, while the girls are on their way to the trail, Libby posted a selfie on Snapchat. Abby was sitting in the back seat. Libby posted another selfie 2 minutes later. She was smiling, while Abby had a blank expression. At 2:05, so Libby posted a photo of the high bridge just before they crossed. That's one we've seen. At 2:13, the infamous bridge guy video, which the jurors saw yesterday. This is very interesting. The last movement detected by the phone's Apple Health app was at 2:32 p.m. So remember, this phone is tracking movement. And at 2:13 is when Bridge Guy abducts them. And at 2:32, that phone does not move anymore. This, again, will be tough for the defense to... will be interesting to see how they work around this. Officials initially believed that the last signal from the phone was received around 10 p.m. at February 13th, but a second analysis conducted earlier this year using more advanced programs found that the last signal was received at 4:33 a.m. on February 14th. At the time, Libby's phone received several text messages all at once. One came from her grandmother, and others, and one of them is, "You need to call me now." Of course, that was Patty, the grandmother. Cecil said there was no indication that Libby's phone had been turned off, and it's unclear why the messages all came at once. So there was talk about, and we're going to read this because there might be some more stuff in here. There's talk that basically the iPhones, even though the battery, say the battery dies, it still keeps some power in the circuits, particularly in the Wi-Fi circuits. And basically, that is so it keeps it for a certain. It depends on the model of the phone. It has progressed, but so it can stay on, not the phone itself, but there's still power in it. And then whenever that power finally is about to go out, it sends one last signal, one last little burst, and then it, sends out one last ping, and, it'll get the messages or whatever, and then the phone completely dies. Boogie, Green Street, coming in with the 4980 Super sticker. God bless you. I appreciate the support. It means a lot. As I said, I've been going at this nonstop. I do my lives, and then after I research a bunch of different journalists and YouTubers, and then I put together that day before, because there's always still more stuff to go over, and then I repeat the process. So I spent a lot of time putting all that stuff together that I showed earlier, so I do appreciate the support. It really helps this channel out. I'm just going to proofread this real quick. Okay, so this has got a little bit different stuff to it, a little bit more, because again, obviously, you got different journalists, and some are going to hear certain parts of the testimony, and others are going to hear, so everybody's kind of got their perspective, because we don't have a transcript, video, or audio of the court proceedings. So I'm going to reread another version of Dr. Roland Kaur. Seems like there's some more stuff in here. So he says, Abby had a 2-inch laceration across her neck that damaged her left jugular vein, which had been made from right to left. So it would have been... Libby had at least 4, maybe 5 overlapping wounds on her neck. Two of the cuts, one on each side, were lethal and hit arteries, which is obviously very detrimental, fatal. Those are obviously, your jugular, it's very terrible. And I'm not going to read the next part. Obviously, it would be a lot of blood. And obviously, any victim, I'm sure, with getting cut would grab their neck. And obviously, they would have blood all over them. Kaur, who said that that he has performed nearly 8,000 autopsies. Oh my gosh. Oof. Estimated that the teens lived... So this is something also we didn't hear in the other statement. So he estimated that the teens lived between 4 to 10 minutes after their throats were slashed. Although they likely lost consciousness before dying. Because after a certain amount of blood loss, you need blood, oxygen for your brain, and you basically just kind of fall asleep. Obviously, still, that would be very terrible. These poor girls. Kaur also said there was no visible signs that the girls were assaulted, but then in the other one he said that doesn't mean that there hadn't been contact. He just said that there was no trauma to those areas. So that is interesting. Have you ever accidentally nipped yourself with a razor? Yes. As a matter of fact, going back to the box cutter. So the box cutter I used, obviously there's many different ones.
Teenage girls, Abby Williams and Liberty German.
Yeah. So Alan told an inmate that a box cutter was used in the murders. So keep that in mind. That was one of the many statements and one. Remember, there's supposedly 61 confessions, and these are confessions that they're saying have details only the killer would know. 60 plus. Oh, there it was. So the box cutter that I used was this one here. Now there's a couple of different razor blades, obviously, for different box cutters. Now I had this one. I love these ones because they're thin, and I would literally put it in my mouth because, especially my job. I mean, I like 70% of what I was doing was opening boxes and stocking shelves. So I'm always cutting open boxes. And I would usually, so you would have this, you could push this part in, right? So you push this part in, and this part would stick out more, and that way it blocked the blade. Now, if you pushed it back out, which could easily happen, the blade would then come back out. And sometimes I would think that I'd push the blade all the way back in, and I didn't, and I'd put it in my mouth. And sometimes I'm going really fast, and it's only happened a couple times, but yeah, I slice open, and it wasn't bad because it, just part of the blade was sticking out. But yeah, I cut my lip open a couple times because I would kind of just yank it, or I cut my cheek. Nothing major or anything, but yeah, I definitely nicked myself. But yes, they're sharp. And so I would now, from the time that I've worked, because I've worked in retail a long time, I know eventually they kind of got rid of these. I mean, sure that you could probably still find these, but obviously they probably went with some more safer ones, which, you just retract the blade and there's no way for it to accidentally come out, where this one, that's possible. So it's possible he may have had this blade, which uses this more triangle blade. It still cuts the same, but you can actually kind of stab with this one, obviously, because it's got the triangle tip. So, I don't know 100%, but I would lean more towards it. They probably use something more like this at CVS. Excuse me. Yeah, don't put blades in your mouth. Yeah, well, you would see anybody. I mean, anybody that was working at that time, everybody that. I mean, that's how I learned, is because I watched my boss and others do that, because, it was just the thing. Instead of having to dig in your pockets to find it, it was right there, and yeah. So let's see what else they got here. Okay. So yeah, that's interesting with the 43 or no, I'm sorry, with the 232 timeline. Back here. Yeah. And we got the ninja in the house. Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're having a good day at work. Was any near the F tree? I'm not sure what you mean. If you're talking about blood, yes, there was. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. I could be wrong, though. There was blood around the base of the F tree because obviously that's where Libby was attacked, near that tree. And so she was stumbling around it. Obviously, she had grabbed her neck and then made the upside down L in the process. And then they believe she collapsed around this tree, but then would be eventually dragged over a few feet afterwards. If you have any questions, if you guys want, I could replay the video I made, the reenactment video. Obviously, it's nothing special, but just kind of gives you an idea of what it's like, what the jurors saw. I'm just going to see if there's some updates real quick here. Oh, it does look like this has been updated. Okay, so this has been updated. Okay, so there was a motion for limine for regarding a defense witness. Judge Gould ruled against a request from the defense that a witness be allowed to testify regarding the metallurgy, basically the bullet and firearms. The state filed a motion to exclude his testimony, arguing that Dr. William Tobin is an expert in metals, but not in firearms. After review, Judge Gould ruled that Dr. Tobin is not an expert in firearms and has had no training in firearms and has never conducted firearms examination. If that's true, that's terrible by the defense. I mean, they're going to bring in some guy that has no training, and he's going to testify on a bullet? Now, maybe there's another side to this, but I don't know, but I guess I would agree with that. If he doesn't have any expertise in firearms and he's going to test on that. Is this from the same day? Oh, no, okay. So remember when they had some of the court reporters that had their cameras confiscated, and they themselves were literally kicked out permanently. Sounds like we got the names and the companies. So we got a camcorder from Eric Arnold from NBC. His camera was taken. 2 cameras. Mike Conroy from Associated Press, and 2 cameras from Alex Martin. The court had the memory cards removed and the jurors' images erased. Wow, so they actually had footage of the jurors. Wow. Huge no-no. Why would they do that? Ugh. So, and that sucks because, we want transparency in this case. And you got idiots like this from NBC and Associated Press who now just further support why, Gull isn't going to have any kind of transparency because people are idiots. Man, it's stupid. Okay. All right, so that's the same. What did I do with my other bookmark? Oh, don't do that. Okay, so here we go. We got some more updates here. Okay, cool. Oh, we got a lot here. All right, now I'm moving it. Okay, and we've got. Okay, so we got a lot more here. So we're gonna go back over Dr. Roland because it looks like he was also. There's cross-examination from Rosie, and I don't think we heard from the defense. So obviously, we want to hear what they were arguing. So let's see what the defense had. Rosie said that Core couldn't say anything definitive about the type of blade used to kill her during deposition. Oh yeah, so remember, he said recently that he believes a box cutter could have been used, and apparently I guess Rosie has not heard that, and so they were upset. Rosie quoted Core as having said anything from a pocket knife to a kitchen knife. Rosie then asked if the 5 to 10 minutes it would take to die from the cuts would have given Abby time to react. Rosie mentioned running or screaming. Rosie noted Abby's trachea was intact. Rosie noted that Core could not tell if the person who cut either girl was left or right-handed. Rosie said Core used the word serrated twice in an autopsy report. He asked Core if more than one weapon could have been used since the markings only appear on one wound. Rosie said Core said it might have taken up to 20 minutes for Abby to die during deposition. Rosie suggested she might have been dragged from another location based on debris on Libby's legs. I said they weren't classic serrations. Core said I was unsettled because they weren't classic serrations. So what could have caused these marks? Rosie asked Core if Core called Rosie back after changing his mind. Okay, so I'm just kind of proofreading this, just trying to get. This is kind of the way they'd written this is really weird. Rosie asked if Core called Rosie back after changing his mind. So I guess he changed his mind originally about what may have been used as far as weapons and how they were cut. Core said no. Rosie asked if Core spoke with the prosecution. He said yes. Rosie said that Core couldn't definitively say a box cutter was used. Core agreed he could not definitively. Core said a supplemental report would be speculative and not definitive. Either way, Rosie said it's all speculation. During redirect, Luttrell asked, what was the minimum number of knives used to cause all the wounds? Core said 1. Core said just because it was different marks doesn't mean it was a different instrument. Libby's mother and at least one member of the jury were visibly emotional by the autopsy photos. Oof. Libby's mother cried. The juror held his head in his hands. Oof. Trigger warning. There's a little bit more. Oh. Okay, so yeah, there's more in here as well with the pathologist. So trigger warning. Course testimony resumed with the diagram showing the major vessels and veins in the neck and where Abby and Libby's throats were cut. Per the diagram, both Libby's carotid arteries were severed. Her left jugular vein was also severed. Abby's jugular vein was only partially severed on the left side. She did not have cuts on her right side. The jury was shown photos of Abby's body, including a gaping wound on her neck. Core said the cut was clean on the left end. But there was more skin damage on the right side. Core said the cut was likely made from right to left, and it was maybe an inch deep. Core noted a faint reddish mark between the chin and lower lip under Abby's mouth. Her body showed liver mortis. This is when the blood settles to the lowest. So the blood, basically gravity takes over and it goes to the lowest part of the body. And that causes discoloration, the purple color. Because she was lying on her back for long periods of time, obviously that would be blood. Gravity takes over with that. So he said that she would have been in that position for at least 8 hours to have permanent liver mortis. So if the bodies were recovered at noon, I don't know what time the autopsy was done, so I don't know. I was going to do a time frame, but I'll have to come back to that. Yeah, this is really tough. So just forewarning, Libby's obviously is going to be much worse. I'm going to try to do this as respectful as possible. Libby had 4 wounds on her neck, a possible 5th. 2 wounds overlapped. So that at first it looked like she only had 3. In the photos, Libby's body, there was paper bags over her hands. Of course, said this was to protect potential evidence that may be under her fingernails. With an image of wounds, Core said overlapping injuries may have been created by a second pass that got off track. Libby had also small abrasions below her neck. All right, there was a big loud thud in my apartment. Felt like I was going to fall through the floor. It's weird. Course said pulling away while getting cut could change patterns. Course said there was 5 marks near the edge of the wound on the right side of her Libby's neck. Course said initially he thought the wound was caused by a serrated knife, but Course said he thought the more he thought about it the last few months while preparing for the trial, Course said now he feels like it is more abrasions from something other than a serrated edge. During the deposition with defense attorney Brad Rosie, Course said the marks were not typical serrations, but were serration-like. Court told the jury he happened to have a box cutter on his workbench. Oh, so he said, so when he was doing the autopsy, he has a box cutter in his workbench. He said it has several parallel lines for the thumb grip. Course said that more he thought about it, he thought the marks could have been from the side of a box cutter. Side of the box cutter. Interesting. Anyway, I'm going to continue reading. Jim Luttrell asked Cora what the body would do when it gets a wound like this, like Abby's. And I think we get back into the stuff that we read, would last about 5 to 10 minutes. And same thing with Libby. Okay. So, again, a little bit more information on that front. Obviously, that's really tough to go through. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think about. The side of a box cutter. I'm trying to think what he's trying to say here. I don't know. I'll have to read that because if anybody knows box cutters, it's me. I've used them for a very long time. Very familiar with box cutters. Now, of course, I've never used it to cut anybody, but yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, box cutters were used on, sadly, 9/11. Yep. I will say box cutters are flimsy. The box cutter itself, the blade itself, obviously very sharp. Do a lot of damage. But at the same time, they're not very durable. So, because I've broken blades all the time because if you're cutting like a box and the box like moves while you're cutting, it'll probably snap the blade because the blades are really thin, obviously. So, but yeah, they're razor blades. They cut very, very sharp. Yeah, I'm trying to think about that too. That's something I'll have to research after and kind of think about because you have to, when you're looking at them, left side, right to left. If it's right to left from behind. Oh yeah, from behind. Yeah, then you would think he would be left-handed. Oh yeah, if it was from behind and it was from right to left. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. I'll have to go back and read all that. Study that after this live show. Okay, we're just going to go a little bit longer. Again, thank you to everybody being in here. If you can, at the very least, hit that like button. It really helps this channel out. And if you would like to support it, that'll help me to be able to continue this throughout the trial. And let me make sure I haven't missed anybody because I wouldn't be surprised. So I just want to say Blue Angels, thank you again. Des, God bless you. And Boogie, it does really help me to put these things together each day. So they had Sergeant Christopher Cecil. I'm just proofreading this for a minute. So this will be very interesting because this kind of will be because right now the defense is saying that the girls were abducted and taken somewhere else and then brought back around just before 4:30. But that kind of conflicts with a lot of things because the phone is obviously still pinging to that same tower. The phone, which we're going to learn here, stops moving at 2:32. So, I don't know how they could abduct these girls and take the phone and not have it start tracking movement again. Unless they want to say that the phone was left there. But that means then they got to cross the creek to leave the phone there and then cross the creek back because they took the access road. This is where, a lot of the defense's theory, there's just so many holes you could poke in it that I don't know why they just didn't keep it more simple. All right, so 1 p.m., the state's witness, Sergeant Cecil, is commander of Internet Crimes Against Children. He analyzed Libby's cell phone and SIM card 2019. Said ISP got a gray key device in 2019 that allowed him to unlock Apple devices like iPhones. Cecil performed a full file extraction to get all the phone's content that included active and deleted files and metadata. Cecil said that the data was ingested into a program like Cellubrite to make it readable. Cecil said he performed a detailed analysis on Libby's phone data between June 26th and August 21st of 2019. Cecil said his goal was to establish a timeline of how the phone was used and what was happening in the background. Cecil said 2 people were using the phone, Abby and Libby. The Touch ID had 6 fingerprints saved. Obviously, one of them was Libby's and one of them was Abby's because I think Abby did have a phone, but really, her mom was still, because at her age, her mom really didn't want her using hers. Unlike Libby, she had a little bit more freedom. Using the phone's health app determined that the girls walked about 700 meters between 1:31 p.m. and 2:08 p.m. Interesting. So now we can even determine how much they've walked because of this app. Cecil said the phone stopped moving at 2:32. So that means, at 2:13 is when Bridge Guy video begins. 2:32, the phone stops moving. That is a difference of 19 minutes. So that shows you how quickly they were likely killed, which is truly terrible. That at 2:13, when that video starts, less than 20 minutes later, at the very least, Libby's being attacked. if not both girls, which is just truly terrible to think about. And they talk about Knowledge C. We'll kind of skip that. That's just a program. So he was able to get all the pictures and the times that they were taken. Oh, this is interesting. At 2:14, someone tries to unlock the phone. So okay, hold on. Let me do the math here. Oh, that's actually pretty simple math. 2:13:51. 50 seconds. That's 50 seconds, right? 60. That'd be 60 seconds. That'd be 50 seconds, right? So less than a minute. So we have the 43-second video. 60 seconds, so 17 seconds. So basically, after the video ends, a bridge guy, which I'll play again for those that missed it earlier, it seems like, and I'm assuming this has got to be Libby, she tried to unlock her phone again right after. That's terrible. She was probably trying to unlock it, probably an attempt to maybe try to dial 911 or something, and it didn't unlock because she was probably had it hidden, and so maybe she was trying to do it in her pocket while not looking because she's now being, has a gun pulled on her and being marched down a hill, and she probably tried to do it one more time in her pocket. Ah, that's terrible. Amanda coming in with a PayPal. Thank you so much, Amanda, for the support. God bless you. I would love to continue doing this until the end of the trial. And your guys' support truly means the world. So thank you to those that can donate, because it's a lot of work. So I'm going to be breaking this down for tomorrow because there's a lot of good information here that conflicts with the defense. Cecil said that the pictures or videos on the phone camera roll would not be deleted when the phone is turning off or using Knowledge C. The second analysis, Cecil, with information going back to 11 that day, Cecil told the jury users get to choose which apps track location data. Cecil showed that the data tracking on the video of the bridge showed the location of Libby's phone being at the Delphi High School. Yeah, so remember I talked about that earlier, that the GPS is not accurate because it's such a short video. I'm losing my voice. And if the video was longer, the GPS could start to, better track where they were actually at. Cecil said, as better life went down in the phone, Cecil said, as battery life went down, the phone would close more quickly and worked more slowly. So it's now trying to conserve power. Cecil said there was no indication that the phone turned off between the last time it moved at 2:32 and 4:33 the next day. So again, the phone probably went into a battery saving, type situation, where only basic functions and power are, being used. And then at 4:33, that's when the last bit of power expelled, and it retrieved a bunch of messages, sent out one final ping, and then the phone's dead. Okay, so that was the state's 20th witness. Gosh, I can't believe we're at 20 witnesses already. Let me see if we can get an idea of what's coming up next. I don't know if they're starting a part 2 or not. Anyway, so let's go just a little bit longer, and then we're gonna finish up here because we started at 12:30. 30, so we've got about 3 hours. So it all happened very fast. It sounded like it. I mean, these poor things went. It's just terrible. But there's going to be a lot to break down. Let me show you guys. If you guys missed the recreation of the video, let me just show you one time if you guys didn't see it. So this is a reenactment of the Bridge Guy video that I made. Again, it's not a one-to-one because I haven't seen it, but I went through all the words that were said that people picked out.
He did not last weekend on Libby's phone.
See, this is the path. There's no path down here. We've got to go down here.
He's got a gun. This is freaking me out. Huh?
Prosecuting attorney Nick
And-
McClellan's location.
So obviously, it would be just a very short video. For those that missed it, it was described as it starts out either panned down or panned at Abby, and either pans down or pans up. I can't remember. I've heard two versions, so I'm not sure. But either way, they say it almost looks like it was almost like just like the picture with Abby just standing by herself on the bridge, except this time there's somebody in the background. Obviously, bridge
Path down
guy.
here.
It's believed that Libby is talking about ways to go, directions,
We've got to go down here.
He's
and then Abby says something about a gun.
got a gun.
She then can be heard now kind of running. At the same time, it appears that Libby takes the phone and maybe is trying to hide it, and then it flips upside down.
This is freaking me out.
Abby says, "This is freaking me out," as she comes up to Abby or Libby. Then he says, "Guys," and then shortly right after that is when you can hear what a lot of people claim is a gun cock or metallic sound.
Huh?
And that would be why they edited to where it's just guys down the hill. And why it sounds like it's spliced is because obviously they wanted to edit out the gun being racked, because obviously they wanted to keep that detail to themselves. Hey Touche, says hi Chris in chat. Yeah, Libby did look like his yeah. For those that may have never seen this, I'm pretty sure I've edited one of it, so Not that one. Delphi. Oh, is that the one I just looked at? No, it's this one. We got it in here somewhere. One of these. Actually, I think I moved it. I've got so much stuff. I can't wait until this is over so I can clean off my PC because I've just got so much stuff on this case. Did I move it over to this? I can't find it. Let me try Delphi 2. Yeah, I did have the picture of it. But yeah, there's a picture of Richard Allen's daughter who does look kind of eerily similar to Libby sitting on the Monon Bridge. Very, very eerie for sure. All right. So it's almost 4. So they should be finishing up. There'll probably be some last updates.
We just love our clients and they love us.
Obviously, I'm not sure what other witnesses are coming up after Cecil. I'm surprised. It seems like it's going pretty fast. But it'll be interesting once they start getting into these confessions, because again, to me, out of anything, I think that will be the biggest piece of evidence against Richard Allen. Alan coming in. Thanks for the hard work. Thanks, Mod. Yes, thank you, Mods. God bless you guys. I know you're coming in for many hours helping out. Hey, Tom. Good to see you, buddy. Venmo sent. Hope it helps. Justice for Libby and Abby. Hope you're doing well, Tom. Amazing support of this channel. Yeah, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate the support. We'll be back tomorrow, of course, about the same time. I do the same thing, obviously, because there's no transcripts. It's not being recorded. I will go through what was said, by different journalists, and I will put that together. And then, so as usual, the next day, we'll kind of recap the rest of today. And then I try to put whatever kind of visuals I can in if that's talked about. And then of course then we'll jump into what has been talked about during day 6. But yeah, there you have it right there. Libby's last recording 2:13, and according to them, the last movement of the phone is at 2:32. So, the defense is saying that these girls were taken by a vehicle. And I'm assuming that they took the phone with them because they claim that when they killed the girls that they put the phone under Abby's body and turned on the phone or something like that. And that's how it turns on at 4:33, gets all the messages. And yeah, just really, I don't know. I think there's just a lot of holes in that kind of theory. Mark Ellis becoming a member, supporting this channel. God bless you. Thank you so much. And coming in with the $20 super sticker. I really appreciate it. It really helps this channel out. God bless you. And God bless the mods again. Sensei, Mitzi, D, Jennifer, Jocelyn. I think I saw Jocelyn in here earlier. And Sensei. Yeah. They may have been attacked. So keep in mind, it's Libby's phone. So maybe Libby was attacked first. and then something happened. I mean, 19 minutes is still a long time, you know. It doesn't sound like it, but you know, that's still a lot of time. I'm assuming if they went right for the creek and cross, that would be like 5 minutes, maybe less. So there's still a lot of time there, but again, according to Alan in one of his confessions, he claims why he was interrupted, why he was doing it in the first place, and so we will eventually hear what he was talking about. That's a good question, Criminal, actually. I mean, I think just like the body type, you know, and then, you know, I think she had blonde hair as well. So, yeah. I did, yeah, the drawings. Yeah, we kind of showed them for a brief second. Yeah. Thank you so much, AP. Again, thank you to everybody. And we will be back probably 2 p.m. So 2 p.m. Eastern, which is noon my time. And then we'll just do it again. I'll kind of go over all the stuff from tonight, put it back into another video for tomorrow. So we'll start off recapping what we missed today. And then we'll get into day 6. So I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And we will see you guys tomorrow.